What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, you know, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development programme I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. You're going to love this episode of ScaleUp Radio. I talk with Mark Williams, who is the CEO founder of Lim Art. Mark says something that you may find a little bit strange at one point in the discussion. Mark lost his leg when he was 10, and he describes that as the best day of his life, which may seem a little bit strange to many of us. But he's got a great backstory, and this is a really good example, in fact, of how important a story or how powerful a story behind a business can be. He set up the business initially. It was almost by accident. He was just made a cover for his artificial leg. People commented on it, and one thing led to another. And he's now selling in multi-countries. Thousands of people are wearing his covers, and it is a superb example of focus, really, a niche within a niche, but one that is a multi-billion potential market. There's some great lessons on mindset in here. You can also hear how a chance encounter for Mark led to what is now his largest single customer. We also get into exporting and setting up exclusive partnerships abroad. And it is really a fascinating interview, and you can't help but admire what Mark has achieved. And I think this episode will be an inspiration to all of us looking to develop our own businesses. And you might want to think about some of the things he says about the execution side of the business, how he gets things, make things happen. And there's lots of hints and tips that come through. And if you'd like to level up on your execution, you might like to take our little score app, a little checklist that might give you some hints on the sort of things you need to think about to really level up your execution habits. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted to welcome today Mark Williams, who is the founder and CEO of Lim Art. So, Mark, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Lim Art, there's a sort of a clue in the name, but would you like to tell us what Lim Art is all about?
Okay, so in a very simple way, Lim Art, we design and manufacture the world's coolest prosthetic leg covers for amputees. Basically, when you get a leg from the NHS, it's a bit like a flagpole. You have the top bit where your stump fits in, and then the foot is attached to the bottom, and then your trousers flap around this flagpole like a flag around a flagpole. So that was where the inspiration came from, to solve my own body image issues than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, and it sounds absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's not just the actual product itself and what it looks like as well. It's I think there's a lot, isn't there, about the feeling that it gives to people that have the amputees that now can, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing that probably I didn't even realize. I mean, I've been an amputee now for over 40 years. And as a below knee amputee, I kind of walk okay, with very little pronounced limp or anything. But I was very conscious of people looking at the way my trousers were hanging. I had a big corporate job where you had to wear a suit for work.
Right.
So these trousers used to flap around. And I always felt a bit conscious. Which is why I made it for myself. So this never started as a business. This started just as a solution for my body image issues.
Okay.
And then as it's transpired into a business and developed into a business, the feedback we get is just phenomenal. And like you say, the difference it makes in the confidence of people, that rather than when you walk into a room and you've got a stem leg on, then it's human nature. You're never going to stop it. People will look. Mm-hmm. And they stare, and then you catch them staring. They catch you catching them staring. So there's a huge awkward moment.
Yeah.
And either nobody says anything, or they try and look away, or eventually someone will say something like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind me asking, how did you lose your leg?"
Yeah.
Which is a real bad way to start a discussion.
Mm.
As if you walk into a room with one of our fancy legs, whether it's a Welsh flag, it's a pint of lager that you can put on your leg. Where we
you've just for those that are just listening on the podcast, can you hold that up again just so that I can read it again? So those listening and not seeing, it's just held up an example of one that looks like the label of a bottle of beer, and it says naturally legless. So very good.
So you can imagine. And hopefully the listeners could imagine, you walk into a bar wearing a naturally legless prosthetic leg, and nobody says, "Oh, I hope you don't mind me asking, how did you lose your leg?" And there is no awkward moment. Everyone looks, so that's no different. Yep. And straight away people will just go, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah, and you've got
a great way to start a discussion then.
Yeah, you got a positive start to a discussion as opposed to
and then disability comes into it later on, maybe.
Yeah, fantastic. And you were giving me an example before we pressed record of one that you've just got in today. Yeah, do you want to just run through that one?
Yeah. So we in our expansion plans that we've done over the last 2 years, we have a great exclusive distributor out in Australia, Queensland Prosthetics. And he also does the flying prosthesist guy. So he goes out on the planes and visits people and fixes their legs and orders them new legs and things like that. And then he'd commissioned with an artist a leg with us about 6 weeks ago. And that was an American Indian landscape. So it's got these American Indians on horseback racing across the plain, and just a fantastic picture that this artist did. And then what we do here in Limart, we've got an in-house graphic designer. We then flex that picture and bend it so it fits around the leg cover. Yeah. Because if you just take a flat image, it loses all its image if you just bend it. You've got to really stretch it in the right way, and that's part of our learnings that we've done over the last years is been able to do that. And it certainly ranks in one of the up there as one of the best covers we've done. I mean, I think all our covers that we produce look fantastic. Carbon fibers and flags and flames and skulls and whatever people want. But now and again, you get some that come through the workshop. You just go, wow, that one's really makes a difference. Great.
So, are there many other people that do what you do, or are you totally unique?
No, we're absolutely unique.
Yeah.
Up until we started 5 years ago now. Like I said, I had a need for one. I wanted something that wrapped around my leg. I Googled it and looked everywhere and asked the limb centre, and there was nothing available other than having one built absolutely bespoke, which was going to cost thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
So I just made myself a fiberglass copy of my good leg, tie wrapped it onto my prosthetic to give me that shape.
Yeah.
and that solved my issue. And then just by a little bit of luck that seems to have happened to my life since I lost my leg, I was rebuilding an old 1962 Land Rover with my wife, finished painting it. I had about half a litre of spray paint left, so I decided, well, why not? I'll spray my leg the same colour to give me a Land Rover-themed leg. And then my wife took a picture of me sitting on the bonnet of this Land Rover up in Snowdonia, where we live, at the end of the lake. And it went on social media, on good old Facebook. And a amputee from Birmingham messaged me to say, where did you get your leg cover from? It's really cool.
Right.
I said, oh, I made it myself. And he'd been looking around for something and not been able to find anything.
Yeah.
So he said, do you think you can make me one? So I made him one, and then I made his friend one. And then the real light bulb moment, which is going into how it makes you feel and how it makes other people feel. It was December 2017. I was in Morrison's supermarket. Other supermarkets are available. And I was wearing my T-shirt, shorts, and I'd made a Christmas leg with LED lights on it, just to blend in, you know. And
That's right.
I was walking through Morrison's, and this little 4-year-old lad escaped from his mum, ran up to me and pointed at my flashing Christmas leg and said, hey, mister, your leg's really cool. And you could adjust these lights with a little app on my phone, so you get it to change different colours and stuff. And he thought this was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And his mum came over saying, oh, I'm sorry. I said, it's absolutely fine. And then the little lad said to his mum, Mum, can I have one of these legs for Christmas?
Oh, goodness. Right.
And then you get into that, oh, this could be a bit awkward to explain.
Yeah.
So his mum says, well, you can't, because the gentleman's only got one leg. That's why he's got a magic flashing leg, and you've got two. Anyhow, to cut a very long story short there, driving home from Morrison's to the farm here, which is only 7 miles up the road, I had a bit of a flashback of being aged 10, waking up in hospital and realising I had one leg and thinking my life was over and I was never going to be able to do anything, and someone was going to have to feed me and take me to the bathroom for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Not realising, now looking back, it was the best day of my life. But then I had this thought of this little 4-year-old lad that, God forbid, if anything ever happened to him and he got knocked off his bike and lost his leg, he might just, as young lads do, wake up and go, does this mean I can have one of these flashy legs?
Yeah.
And that was the light bulb that made me realise, look, it's having an effect on 4-year-olds and adults and everyone. There's got to be something in this. So that was the birth of Limart.
And that was 5 years ago, did you say?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, very good. And is it something that can you give us an idea of where the business is at now then? So a snapshot of where you are now.
Okay. So where we are now, we have a contract with the NHS in the UK, because the NHS realised that it was cheaper for them to buy it from us than to try and fabricate things themselves. Yeah. So we now sell all our covers into the NHS, so pretty much any amputee in the UK can now just go into their limb centre and say, I want a Limart cover with my leg. And then for the last 2 years, we've been busy on our export programme. So we're now in Queensland, in Australia, Norway, Denmark, Finland, France. We're just about to launch in the Netherlands. We're in discussions in a few other countries, and we've launched this week in the US with Empire Medical. So they have 250 outlets over there. So that could be a massive expansion for us, because certainly the amount of amputees that's in America is phenomenal. As is anywhere. It was when we started the business, I thought this is the most niche of niche businesses that you can ever start, is making leg covers for amputees. And then I got data from the UK, from NHS, that showed in the UK you've got somewhere between 600 and 700 new amputees every month.
Every month?
Every month.
Goodness.
In the US, you have 500 to 600 new amputees every day. Somebody in the world loses their leg, unfortunately, every 30 seconds. So there's 30 million plus amputees across the world. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe half of them are in the third world and can't afford anything. They don't even get a leg. So maybe they're not in the market.
Yeah.
But if you took the 30 million and everyone bought one cover, it's £7.2 billion.
Yeah, that was certainly a big niche.
Yeah. And that was the point when I was thinking that this is going to be a little side hustle to my corporate job.
Yeah.
Was the numbers that started making me go, okay, this could be a real standalone business.
So how many people are out there wearing your covers?
So we're doing about 1,500 covers a year at the moment.
Right.
But it's difficult almost to keep a track on the numbers, because every month is busier than the months before, every quarter is busier than the quarter before, until every year is pretty much double what we did the year before.
Yeah. So if you outsourced your manufacturing, how are you doing the manufacturing?
And so manufacturing is still all done in-house.
Right.
But then specialist paint and finishes and stuff we outsource, which really helps us because it allows us then to grow at a fast rate and have that flexibility that we can just load our suppliers up with.
Yeah. And is it something that you've been able to protect? Have you managed to get patents on it, or?
We've got design rights on it.
Design rights, yeah.
So that gives us a lot of protection. And also, probably the biggest protection is just moving fast. Just stay well ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And also, the way we produce the covers is absolutely unique.
Okay.
At the time when we first started, the big buzzword was 3D printer. Dead easy. Get a CAD, ping it to a printer, and out the 3D print pops. But leg amputees tend to bash their legs around quite a bit, and 3D prints just really aren't up to the strength.
Right.
So where they're built in their build lines, if you whack them, they crack across the build lines.
Okay.
So we went a different format and went to an injection molding process.
Right.
So we have a big 3-ton stainless steel mold that produces these nylon carcasses out of it in 4 different designs. They all come out as extra longs, and then we mill them here to size for the patients, and then off to paint.
That sounds like quite an expensive piece of kit, was it?
Yeah.
So
it's like a good house.
So can I ask, how did you go about funding that? Did you do that from cash for the business, or how did you go about that?
We sold the house.
Oh, wow. You're kidding.
Yeah. We were very fortunate at the time. We had the house here and we had a house in Spain. So we sold the house in Spain and ploughed it into a plastic leg business.
My goodness, literally.
I found very exciting, and my wife found absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Well, at least it wasn't your main home.
Yeah.
Look on the bright side. But yeah, gosh, that's certainly some commitment, and literally, house-sized machinery. And
yeah. And it is one of the things, and something I've learned all my life is, look, if you're going to do it properly.
Yeah.
And we were committed to it. The feedback we were getting was phenomenal.
Yeah.
If I put my financial hat on, then stay with Ecolab, with the big company I was with. I already had an early retirement plan and final salary pension and all them kind of things. That would be the easy, sensible option. But then in 10 years' time, you'd have looked back and gone, should have done something.
Yeah.
Should have made a difference.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of where we are now, is not so much the growth of the business, but really getting the feedback that you make a difference to people's lives.
So the business model, but it looks like people pay a fixed amount basically for the slightly different options of legs covers that you've got. Is that how it works?
So we try and keep it. I'm a big fan of just keeping things simple. So we have our standard range, and the whole standard range. So there's around about 800 different options in there. Is all one fixed price. So then, depending on which country you're in. So in the UK, obviously, you can get them for free through the NHS provider.
Right.
And then full customs are really, it depends how much work is involved and what someone wants, whether they want flashing lights in them and all sorts of stuff, depends on the price. And then in other countries, it depends on their health system. So some of them are buying them privately via our exclusive partners in the different countries. And some of them are getting funded through their insurance policies or their Obamacares or whatever's happening in the country.
And are people buying more than one? Even if they've just a single amputee, are they buying more than one cover?
Yeah, and that was again in our doing our business plan of thinking, okay, there's 30 million amputees. Let's say half of them are in the third world, so let's cancel it down to just 15 million amputees. Everyone buys one. It's a 3.6 billion pound. There we go. Fatal mistake there is we didn't realise, like all of us, it's like a good pair of trainers or something. Nobody has one.
Yeah.
Or one pair of shoes. You have several pairs of shoes. So we have many amputees now where they get their first cover in the UK from the NHS, and they use that one as their everyday leg cover, and then they have their Christmas one, they have their birthday one, they have the one that Auntie Mabel buys them, and 8, I believe, is the record at the moment. Which is Steph, our one of our very first customers, and she's got 7 or 8 different covers now.
Brilliant. One for every day of the week,
and matches different outfits which you would expect.
Yeah, or different Land Rovers in your case, by the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Different vehicles. Great. No, it sounds absolutely amazing. So take us back then to when you started. You already given us a little bit of insights. You lost your leg when you were 10. I think you were a Paralympian athlete as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So after I'd lost my leg age 10, part of my rehab was getting into swimming, and became quite quick at swimming, beating people with 2 legs. So my coach at the time said to me, "We need to find out how fast you are on the disabled world."
Yeah.
So he wrote at the time, 1983 now, before WhatsApp or anything like that, wrote a physical letter and put it in those tall red boxes.
What are they? Yes.
Down to the British Sports Association to say what are the qualifying times for the British Championships, because I've got a one-legged lad here that I think is quite quick. So they sent the qualifying times. I trained for 6 months, beat the qualifying times. Mick then wrote back to the BSAD to say, Mark's now beaten the qualifying times. How do we get him into the championships? And they wrote back saying, sorry, Mick, there's obviously been some kind of mix-up here. What we sent you was the British records. And it's one of my lessons that stayed with me all my life, is if I'd have known they were the British records, because I remember seeing them to start with, and they were miles ahead of where I was. But it gave me a target. It gave me something to go for. If I'd have known they're British records, would I have worked so hard? Because I was thinking, I've got to get there just to even qualify. How fast are the winners?
Great.
Yeah, I've kept that in my life. In business now, we always have our short-term, medium-term, long-term targets to hit. And really stretch them. Don't give yourself stuff that's easy.
What a great lesson in the mindset and the power of the power of essentially what you can do if you set yourself that target and you don't you don't assume that actually it's beyond you. Amazing. And that reminded me a little bit of I think with Lewis Hamilton and his father. So his father, Lewis said, go and stand at that corner where the others are braking, and so that I know where to brake, sort of thing, or whatever. And his father then went another 100 yards further into the corner or something, and yeah.
And you've got to just keep pushing yourselves. And like with our targets here, I get quite upset if we keep beating every target, because it means we're not pushing hard enough. We really need to stretch ourselves with targets, and we need to miss the odd one, and that means that we're on the right level of pushing.
So you had some tremendous success on the swimming side of things, and then at some point you were then in the shopping centre with your Christmas leg on, and then that was the birth of the business, as it were. So how did you go about then from thinking, oh crikey, there's something here, to actually getting a business up and running?
Yeah, so from making the very first prototype, which was just for me, to the supermarket incident, which really triggered us into putting Limart on the map and starting the business. Initially, I spoke to some colleges, some development places, and they were all saying, "Oh, 3D print it. Absolutely, just 3D print it. Get a CAD, get it 3D printed. The local college said, oh, we can print it." Until we showed them the size of the print that we needed. And then they said, "Oh my God, this is going to take us like the whole day to print."
Right.
It's going to be seriously expensive. And half of them didn't have the machine big enough to actually print something that size. So just again, by luck, little Uncle Luck came knocking on my shoulder. I went to see a 3D printing place in St. Asaph, and they didn't exist anymore. And the guy said, no, he says, they don't exist anymore. They went bust a few months ago. But he said, there's a building over there. They do some funky stuff. Go see them. So I turned up at the front of the building with my prosthetic leg in hand and my fiberglass cover. And I said, can I speak to someone about developing a prosthetic leg cover? And the receptionist there said, well, generally the MD doesn't see anyone without appointments because he's so busy. But when you're standing there with a prosthetic leg in your hand and a cover, I think you might just make an exception. So I went to see Graham there and Troy, Design Reality they were. They've now just been bought out by a multi-billion-pound company. And without them really putting our idea into some semblance and getting things right and looking at the ideation process of getting the right designs and turning that into a proper CAD that was ready to go out to have a injection mold made from it, it wouldn't have happened. So it was great to get those guys on board. They found us the company to make the injection mold, because obviously that's a big step, because once you press the button to say, yep, we're going to buy that mold for X amount, there's no going back. You can't adjust it. If it's wrong, you throw it away and start again. So,
and what sort of startup cost did that incur for you then?
So investment in the business before we sold the first cover was round about £150,000.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a big old step to get to that point.
And that was before you'd sold the house in Spain.
Yeah.
All right. So significant. So what gave you the confidence then to put that kind of money? Was that your own money, or did you get investment to do it? Yeah. So what gave you the confidence at that point to invest what for many of us is a life-changing amount of money?
Yeah. It was one of them that you do get sucked down the line, that you don't think it's going to be that kind of costs.
Right.
I had no experience of building CADs and injection mold machines. But then once you're in it with both feet forward, both feet first, you get to that point where you go, okay, well, we either cancel the project and just throw away everything we put into it so far, or you take that step further, sell the house and invest in it and do it properly. But where the confidence was I knew the difference it was making to me, in confidence and the way people talk to me. I knew the difference it was making to some of the test amputees we were using. And also, from the day we launched the idea, we didn't get one person going, that's stupid, that'll never work.
Yeah.
Everyone was super, super supportive with us. As soon as we launched our first prototype, we won the Stelios Award for entrepreneurship. So Stelios from EasyJet.
Yes. Yeah.
So down to London and got presented with a nice check from him and support from Stelios and the EasyJet group for the first year.
Oh, excellent.
And then Conway Business Awards, we're a double award-winning company there. And then just since then, every few months, we're up for some kind of award. So you've got your peers and people who are very successful in business going, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And also in a lot of them, you're having to go through the financials of the business. And they're saying there's not only is this a good idea, financially it stands up and definitely that business has got legs.
Yeah. And so do you have a special cover then for your award ceremonies? Do you?
I do. So I have, obviously, again, this is on radio, so people can't see that one. I have my 24 karat gold on.
Wow.
So it is the only one in the world that's 24 karat gold. So my wife bought it for me for a Christmas present. So that's my award ceremony leg.
Superb. So you're planning increasing money into the business, crossing fingers it's going to work. Were you able to build up pre-orders before you actually had it all done, or did you have to wait until you'd literally got it and then go to market?
Yeah. No, we just we had a few prototypes, and we knew from our social media that people were going. We went to a few shows as well and got some real great feedback. So we had a little booklet of people that were saying, "Look, as soon as you launch, let us know. I want one of them."
All right.
But certainly, you were talking tops £1,000 of orders, so nothing compared to what we needed.
Yeah, well, right, but a good start. So that couple of key milestones there, including getting your first, getting it to the point where actually you can go to market. So then, what were some of the other milestones? Some of the other big steps along the journey between then and now?
So the business developed quite nicely, and this was mainly just B2C, just direct to patients, buying through our online e-commerce site. And then probably one of the first major milestones was at the NIDEX exhibition in the NEC in Birmingham. We met a gentleman by the name of Dr. Fergus Jepson, who's fairly senior in the NHS, and very forward-thinking in the NHS. And he said, "I'm sure these things would save money for us, and make our life easier, and the patients will love them, so it ticks all three boxes." So I went up to see him in Preston. So he was the first NHS centre that took them on board as NHS products.
Another chance meeting in a way. It wasn't a strategy to go. Oh, we need the NHS on board. How do we go about it? Just right.
So that got us our first steps into the NHS, and then that was progressing along quite nicely. But obviously, the NHS, they can't promote products internally. So we've still got to get the message out there. And then we were, again, very fortunate that Carol Vorderman was doing a series of programs about her origins in North Wales.
Right.
So what she was doing was telling stories about her youth in North Wales before countdown time and stuff. Yes. And she wanted to meet people who are either with something to do with her history or were doing some kind of interesting business in North Wales. So they brought the film crew up here, and they filmed my Land Rover with me up at the Brennig Reservoir, and then Carol came to the workshops here and everything, and we showed her how we made them all. So we had a 15, 20-minute program that millions watched about limb art and prosthetic leg covers.
Yeah.
And that you could see literally when that series was launched, overnight, our hits on the websites and stuff went through the roof. And then Carol shared it on her social media. So, of course, the way the algorithms and everything work, yes. You get people with a big following sharing it, then it really boosts us.
So for many of us, I'm sure, listening, that we're probably sat thinking, crikey, that's brilliant. And then the second thought is, my goodness, if that happened to me, how do I cope with all that demand? So how did you manage to cope with that sudden upsurge in demand?
Fortunately, with us, what you get is the big burst in social media, and you get the big burst in following. But we've got sort of a 3 or 4 week process from when a patient comes to us to building a leg. So it's not like we've got to send 1,000 of them out the next day.
Right.
So we can sort of build with it. And it was more a case of just me changing my work a little bit from going pre the show, 1 day manufacture, 4 days promotion and visiting limb centres and trying to raise the profile of the business, to switching it then to doubling manufacture by doing 2 days and then 3. which is where we're at now. We're just looking probably to bring a production person in to help with all the packaging and that side.
So how many people are in the business now?
So there's 4 of us. I'm really the only full-time person. My wife does all the accounts as well as holding down a full-time job. And then we have 2 contractors, one that does all our social media and one that does all our graphic design and custom covers.
Great. So you've managed to do that on almost an outsourced basis rather than have to go full time. Great. So what are some of the things that you would say you'd got? What would you go? You know what? We got that right. That was a great decision. We did that well. What sort of things would they be?
I think that one of the biggest things was to realize that you can't be great at everything. And so right at the start of putting the business together, we wrote down on the wall, I still have my big sign on the wall here, of all the stuff that we think we're good at.
Yep. And
also that we like doing. Okay. It was for the first time I thought, right, we'll get this right from the start. So because it's pointless putting something up that, we're good at doing that, but I hate doing it because you won't do it. Yeah. So we put down all the stuff that we are really good at and what we like doing. And then we put down then, which was the tough list to do, because you've got to be brutally honest with yourself. What are you not good at? Yeah. And as a former Paralympian, you don't want to be going, oh, I'm not good at that. You're always in this positive, nothing's wrong frame of mind. Yeah. So you've really got to be honest with yourself and say, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that. I can do that, but it would drive me nuts to do it. And then you've got to find people that can do that job. And not only do that job, but really that's their forte and that's what they love doing, and build the business that way. So that was the first bit, was to really understand what were we not good at and fill those gaps in. Okay. And then also realize that the answers are all around you pretty much every day. You just don't see them half the time. So all our designs, I'm no designer, but we come out with some really funky covers, and the designs all come from items that were around us that just looked cool. So we have the ultralight design, which is the one my gold one is based on. It's got loads of holes in it, and that inspiration came from a picture I took of a rock separating machine. It was brand spanking new, where you throw all the rocks and rubbish in the top and it separates them all out into the different rock sizes. Yeah. But it had this beautiful stainless steel tube down the middle, superbly engineered and so uniform, and it just looked great. And I remember just taking a picture down this tube. Yeah. So when we got into the ideation stage with Design Reality, they said, what cool things, what looks good? Yep. So I brought the picture out, and that was the inspiration for the ultralight design. For the wave design that we have, that has waves all built into it, was a piece of artwork that my wife had. She just loved. It doesn't describe anything. It's just this lump that's got waves on it. It's just a piece of non-specific art. So that was the second one, was where the art came from. The vent was the front grille I had a Mercedes at the time, the front grille that lets the air go through to the brakes. I just looked at it and thought, some German designer has really gone to town with how to make that vent system flow. So we made the vent cover from that one. And you realize then you don't have to be an absolute artist. You just need to see these things that are around you, and there are the solutions to your business. So keep your eyes open and be open to and not just keep your eyes open, but make sure you don't have the blinkers on. Yeah, you can see not only what's in front of you, but everything that's going on to the side of you and above you and below you. And I think that extends to all sorts of things, doesn't it? Because if we the reason that you were able to do that is you knew what you kind of knew what you were looking for in a way. So you're open to when you spot something, it's within this is I know where I'm going. I know what I need to get, and then you spot the things that otherwise you might just have, as you say, you might just have had your blinkers on. And also the other part with this process, I mean, we were going through something that neither myself nor my wife had been through before. So there was lots of new stuff, and you can't wait until you've got everything ready and everything right before you move. If you do that, I don't think you'll ever get going, because you'll never have absolutely everything ready. Some of the stuff you're just going to have to figure it out as you go through, and have the confidence that you can figure it out. Because if you wait until you've got everything ready, we'd probably still be waiting now, and someone else will have jumped in and made Limart and beaten us to it. Yeah. So I think my sort of motto on that one is, if you go fast, you can have some big disasters and you can have some big successes because you've beaten the wave. If you go slow, you can still have some big disasters, but you just don't get the successes. So on balance, go quick.
Interesting. Yeah.
Unless you're going to be a brain surgeon or something, then make sure you've got absolutely everything right before you delve into someone's head.
Yeah, but I think that's right. But in the end, and at some point, even with brain surgery, somebody had to try something that hadn't been done before. So if you'd waited till you were absolutely certain that nothing could go wrong with the brain surgery, you probably never would have done one. So I think the same lesson applies, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I advise for the Welsh Government on their Business Wales programme. And the amount of businesses there that I see that are in their startup phase, but they've been in their startup phase for 3 years, and they're still, but what about this? And just overthinking it. And I think my attitude to get going comes from Mick, my swim coach, and he said, if you want to win a race, first thing you got to do is get off the blocks quick. Yeah. So we trained for the first half a year on just how do you get off the blocks quick. And I think that just, all these little bits of nuggets stay inside you then for the rest of your life.
Yeah. There's a few famous quotes around that idea of taking the first step, isn't there? Yeah. Good. So one of the questions that occurred to me earlier on that I meant to ask, when you were in the stage of your R&D really, and you were getting the prototypes made, how did you go about setting the price?
We looked at really what was available on the market. So available on the market, they were into the thousands, because the only way of getting them was these absolute one-off designs. So we looked at what's affordable, what's a good affordable price, and also working it from both ends really, working it from what do we think is affordable. Yeah. But also looking at what's our costings. So we knew with the mold, we wanted to amortize that mold over the first 5 years. Okay. So that is a big chunk of the cost of the product, is the R&D and the amortization of the mold. We know we did on some of our prototypes paint testing stuff, so we knew that kind of cost. We knew our cost for postage. So we knew the base cost of goods for our product, and we knew what the offices and salaries and car and van and things like that were going to cost. So we knew that base, and then the age old thing of it costs you a third to make it, a third to sell it, and a third profit. Then you kind of balancing it into that sort of levels, which gives you the price we're at today of £300 for a cover.
Brilliant. No, that's very helpful, definitely. Okay, so what sort of things would you say that you would do differently? With a bit of hindsight, what would you do differently? To
be honest, I think again, Uncle Luck was tapping on my shoulder, and we got most things I think right. Probably the only thing I regret is I probably should have done it 5 years before that.
It's funny, quite a few people have that answer. Yeah.
I had a corporate job that I'd been with for 25 years. So Sen says, so you get a new car every 2 years, you've got a final salary, you've got healthcare and pensions and all these kind of things. So don't move. Yeah. And it sort of traps you in there a little bit. And I remember the day I finally left And now you just realise, okay, the company I work for, Limart, there is no minimum wages on this. If you don't sell anything, you don't get paid. And it was a complete reversal to where I was, which keeps you going in that corporate route for sometimes a little bit too long.
Yeah,
I think I got stale there. So, yeah.
I think that's interesting. There's also some evidence that happens within entrepreneurship as well. As you say, when we start out, we have to make it work, and equally we've got nothing really to lose. But there comes a point in the stage of the development of the business when the founders built it to a level where now the founder's reasonably comfortable and reasonably happy with it. But to scale to the next level might require another significant investment or push, and not everybody's up for that kind of second push.
And we're fortunate that to expand the business production wise really doesn't cost us a great deal extra. The mold that we've got is good for 500,000 leg covers. And then after 500,000 leg covers, it has a tolerance of 1% on it. So that's still we're not fitting a little micro widget into a micro widget.
Yeah.
If it was 1 mil out, it's not going to make a lot of difference to us. So really, the business is still phenomenally exciting for us, because what we're doing now is setting up these exclusive partnerships with companies all over the world.
Yeah, and what do you? That was going to be my next question. Is what have you learned about setting up those sort of partnerships?
I think the key thing, and I learned not just with Limart, but with Ecolab before, is when you're setting up these partnerships in the countries, you've got to really look at it very much from their chair, and also this has got to be a win-win. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I look at when we're trying to find a partner is this going to be more than just a supplier and purchaser relationship? Because if that's all it's going to be, it's not going to work. I've got to have a company who is genuinely excited about the covers and has that wow, look at them reaction, and also has a genuine interest in helping the lives of amputees. And that's been the key basis to what we wanted to do. And that's why we do the exclusivity. So what we do in the end is we only sell to them in that country, and we don't sell to anyone else. We turn the back end of our e-commerce site off when we sign the contract, so that then if anyone wants to buy direct, they buy it via that company in that country.
With those exclusive arrangements, are there any conditions around that in terms of how many they would need to sell, or how long the exclusivity would last for? What sort of things do you do there?
Yeah, so generally we go initially for the first 3 years. So we do a 3-year, and then we always discuss when we set up the 3-year that as long as everything goes well, we'll follow that one with the 5-year and then just roll it. And yeah, included in that is targets.
Yeah.
And there's minimums as well. Because I think it's important to have two. Because like I said early on in our discussion, it's good to miss targets now and again, because you're pushing yourself far enough. But you don't want it to be where they're going, okay, we're 92% of our target, but we're 8% off, we're going to lose the contract.
Yeah.
So there's bare minimums. Look, if we're not doing this kind of level, then let's just get together and go, look, why isn't it working? Is there some fundamental reasons why it's not working in this country? Or are we better off just walking away and we'll find a new partner? But at least it sets the expectations there.
Yeah, good.
We both companies know at the end of the year whether you go, oh, that was a good year. Because the worst thing that can happen is us at Limart are sitting here going, oh, that was a great year in Australia. And then you get to the end of the year and your partner in Australia says, this isn't paying any money for us.
Right.
We're not going to do it anymore. And yet, or vice versa.
Yeah.
As at least at the start of the contract, if you say we want to do 500 covers and you do your 450, 500 at the end of the year, you're both happy.
Yeah.
You don't have to have that awkward discussion of, was that good enough or not?
So what proportion of your sales now come then from the website, I guess, be the BTC aspect of it versus through the exclusive arrangements?
So still, by far, the biggest customer would be NHS.
Right.
So on a B2B there. I would say we're looking probably 80% of our sales are B2B,
right,
and 20% B2C. And obviously, the more we expand and get into countries, then that number will increase until I can imagine in the end we'll have very few direct customers, B2C ones. They'll all be B2B.
Yeah. So if
we're building up the B2Cs in countries where we don't have a distributor to create some underlying volume there. And then once it's a bit of a chicken and egg. If you're not selling in the country, then no one's interested and no one knows about them. So we sort of focus on countries, do a lot of social media in that country, get some covers out into those countries, and then, as it has happened so far, pretty much, is the distributors come to us. We're not having to go knock doors. They know we do these exclusivity agreements. So we're generally through LinkedIn, which is the more business side of social media. Once we start asking, okay, does somebody in whatever land fancy joining up with Limart as an exclusive partner?
Okay,
that's how we found them up to now.
And what have you learned about exporting?
I'm not going to say the B word. It would have been a lot easier if we were still on this level playing field with Europe, but there we go. It's done. So there's now a raft of paperwork you have to do with everything. We are, I think, massively protected in Limart because there is a commodity code for prosthetic leg covers. They come under a general term for add-ons to medical equipment.
Okay.
So we're really lucky there. And then because it's only disabled products that go through this code, pretty much so far, all the countries we've exported to, the customs recognize what they are. And then you're generally not getting any VAT. They're zero rated in most countries, and there's no import fees. So that kind of helps us. But I really, from the work that we have to do to export into Europe, I really, really feel for the companies that are doing 1,000 different types of product, and they're all different classifications and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you end up with a full-time head just pushing papers around.
And are you charging in sterling if you're selling? Because it sounds like when you go into a country, you're selling B2C first of all and building the market.
Yeah.
So are you selling in sterling, or how are you doing?
So we trade everything in sterling. On the B2C on our website, when you go through our payment gateway, it automatically translates it into the local currency at that day's exchange rate. But with all the B2B contracts that we've got at the moment, we do all our pricing in sterling. Again, it keeps it simple for me, and it's exchange rates. I'm not having to have the headache of working out what the exchange rate's going to be, and managing the fluctuations there, where you might have a great year, but then you lose it all because the exchange rate's gone west. Yeah.
So you just bet on sterling essentially, and it's the distributor will have to adjust accordingly for their margins if that's what they need to do. Yeah.
And also it comes back to having a great relationship with your distributors.
Yeah.
And really having that discussion that it's got to work for me and it's got to work for you.
Yeah.
If the exchange rate goes one way massively and it ends up we're making a lot more money, but they're losing a lot more and it's not working for them, then what will happen? They will end up taking their foot off the throttle for our products and sell something else, which is no good to me. So we're always open for the discussion if we can see that something's going wrong in the market, of how we can solve that and how we can bring it back to being a win for both of us.
Good. So where you're 5 years old now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Well, if we're having this discussion in 5 years' time, what does good look like?
So good would look like we've got our exclusive partnerships in the main countries around the world, the sort of 28 big ones, and also then expanding the product range where we're going from just legs. We do get fairly regular now people through accidents or whatever have lost an arm and a leg, and we don't do the arms at the moment.
Right.
The business started where my expertise was
Yes,
with
yeah.
prosthetics. I'm very fortunate I have both my arms, but that's certainly an avenue we want to go down, is looking at arms. We're just pretty much at the end of our project to launch our pediatric covers, so for kids, so that we can cover from sort of 2 years old upwards, in whatever little ones. And
excellent. Yeah.
And again, the difference when you do a pediatric cover is massive. You turn the little lad's issues where he gets picked on in school, because that's what kids do.
Yeah.
Because you're different, into the whole school going, why can't I have a Pokemon leg?
Yeah. So you've got
it flips it. It doesn't just solve the problem; it flips it completely on its head.
Becomes cool.
Yeah.
And presumably then you're going to have to get into the whole idea of licensing if you're going to use characters like Pokemon and whatever. You're going to have to.
Yeah, well, most of the patents and stuff that we buy, and you can buy them with the license already paid on them.
Yeah.
So that's where we do them at the moment.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Really, really, really good insights there, and a fascinating business. So thank you very much for that. Couple of quick fire questions. Really, I've already asked you what if you went back to your younger self, what your advice would be, and that was to start 5 years earlier, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any books or podcasts or other resources that you would recommend?
I would recommend reading the Great British Entrepreneur book, which is the 10 most inspirational entrepreneurs over the last 10 years. That's a great buy, available on Amazon. Yeah.
And that's, of course, how we linked up, was through the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, wasn't it?
Yeah. And also get into the awards. We really have had massive benefits from getting into the awards, from the Welsh Startup Awards, the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, and even your local business awards, with the FSB and Chamber of Commerce and things like that. Really, really good, because you meet some great people there, and it's surprising. I have my drawer that has all my business cards of people that I've linked up with over the years, and also link with them on LinkedIn. And you never know then where you just go, I know that guy, and I can go and grab that, and he can help you see what's on the other side of the woods. Yeah.
Very good. Any apps or bits of software that have made the most difference to you? Do you have things on your phone?
Really, I come back to it in Limart. We try and keep stuff simple. So one of the great bits of software we use here is the electronic version of T-cards. So before trying to go into SAP and stuff, which just is massively complex, great for that type of business where you need that kind of complexity and control. But when you're still a fairly small SME, the electronic version of the paper T card is a fantastic system. So all our production, orders, and everything goes through that system. We started with the it's still on the wall in the office. Is the old paper T card.
Yeah. So is it Trello you use, or is it another one?
It's actually from T-Card themselves.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. T-Card Online, I think it's called.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Good. Excellent. No, really good. So as I say, really fascinating story, and I love what you've done. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. If people would like to get hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So the best way to get hold of us is just go through our website, www.limart.com, or on any of the social medias, it's @LimartCovers, all one word. Or just Google Mark Williams prosthetic legs, and I'll come up. We keep getting all